Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a memoir I wrote about my journey to love and compassion. I share my failings, my successes, in the hope that my journey will inspire yours. You can buy a signed copy of my book on the website at lindamarsanico.com on Buy the Book page, also at retail and bookstores. I also have a free gift for you. I call it the cheat sheet for high vibration living. 7 exercises designed to help you stay in the present moment with a high vibration. One of them is a violet light, sort of a meditation where you bring the violet light, you intend it to come and cover your body, to protect and heal you. You can download a free copy on my website at lindamarsanico.com. I have 2 disclaimers. One, that this broadcast does not establish a professional relationship. And 2, that the opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily represent Talk Radio New York City. Today, my guest is Anne Mortifee. Anne Mortifee, born on a sugarcane farm in South Africa, is known by many to be a truly Renaissance woman, a unique and passionate performing artist, composer and librettist, a narrator, workshop facilitator, author, and keynote speaker. Her albums, books, one-woman shows, musicals, ballets, and her deep work with people have won her, among many awards, the prestigious Order of Canada and YMCA Woman of Distinction Award. She has been chair of the, I think it's the British Columbia, the BC Arts Council, traveled the world, worked with the dying, dined with the Queen, spent time with the head Sangoma of the Zulu Nation, worked in Calcutta with Mother Teresa, and co-founded the Trust for Sustainable Forestry and the Somerset Foundation. Anne Mortifee, I am honored to have you with me on this show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so looking forward to getting to know you better.
And I you. And for our listeners as well. This is the treat in store for them today. So the first question I want to ask you is, what in your youth, adolescence, what influences from then bring you to where you are today in your work and your life?
Oh my goodness, so many. Number one, growing up on a farm in Zululand where, we were about 30 miles from other people, other farmers. And so I grew up with the Zulu people, and it gave me a sense of being. I was sort of straddled between 2 cultures. And I know that's influenced me so profoundly to always look out into the world and see different ways of being. So that in itself, and because apartheid was on the rise, I saw the difficulties as I grew up, and really became very committed to the end of apartheid and therefore to injustice on a global level. The other thing that was huge in terms of our conversation around our spiritual lives was that my very, very first memory is of a dream I had recurringly over 2 or 3 years. And it was always exactly the same. I would be standing, looking into a room, and I could see someone lying in a bed there. And I would feel a pull pulling me towards that bed. And I would say, oh, no, 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 don't go there, don't go there. You're going to get stuck in the dream again. And the pull would get stronger, and I'd try to resist, but was not able to resist the pull. And suddenly I found myself sitting up in the dream in a bed that was not my own, and looking at hands and saying to myself, these are not my hands, these are her hands. And gradually, the person speaking disappeared. And I would say to myself, looking at these, my little hands at about 4 or 5 years old, oh no, who am I when I'm not dreaming I'm Anne? And that left such a profound um, impression on my consciousness that throughout my life, I always had this feeling of, well, who am I when I'm not Anne? And a sense of another world. And living in South Africa, particularly, my nanny, Gosololo, was a extraordinary woman. So she brought me into contact with our intercommunication with everything. She told me, oh, the world would be so sad if we did not have Ndlovu, the elephant, to beat out the drum for us on the soil of the earth. And she always had little things she said that you made me realize, yeah, we everything belongs here. Everything is a part of this. So I would have to say my passion for nature, which ultimately led to the Trust for Sustainable Forestry, which actually I just got word today, we've changed the name of it to Living Forest Trust. And I like that better. Anyway, so that led to me forming that. And so it's my need to be close to nature. I think that our world is starved for a relationship with nature. And the other thing was this feeling that I knew I experienced it as I got older, that I was like a split being. There was me who was living my day-to-day life, and then another me that was watching it all. So I'd have to say being born in Africa was my sense of other cultures, my need and love of travel, my desire to know what other people feel and think. And yeah, I can't say how Africa was so central in my life. Yeah.
And nature has been so central in your life. You're living off the coast of Vancouver on an island. And are, are there 30 miles between you and something else? Are you
No, no.
isolated?
Well, we're somewhat isolated. We have to get to Vancouver, which is one of the closest big cities where you can fly from, is 3 ferries and about a 7-hour journey. Yeah. So I live on the coast of a little island and keep chickens, have a big garden, do my food, I just built a root cellar, which I'm very excited about. And I also have just taken on medicinal plants and I'm loving that. So yeah, I love being close to nature.
It sounds amazing, Anne.
It is amazing.
My next question is, what is the role of spirituality in your life?
I actually don't really, when I look back at my life, I realize that it even comes before my art, which is my passion is art. But my spiritual life, it started very, very innocent, just, nature and feeling a presence in the sky and knowing I wasn't Anne. But it moved on to, at a young age, I became like about 13, 12 or 13, I ended up getting very, very involved in Christianity, had many unusual experiences during that time. I found I came by faith very easily. And I'd gone through a lot of dark things in my early years. One of which was I had TB and I was in a sanatorium for 9 months when I was 7.
Mm.
But that in itself opened a world for me. You look at the things that were difficult and painful when you were young, but really that was one of the formative places that I learned how to connect with the other world.
Mm.
A little room of my own, and the moon would come through the window and create patterns on the wall,
Yes.
leaves that it came through. And those patterns became friends to me, and I found them. And so it created my imagination, and it created my sense of the other world being very close to me. And when I got well enough to get out of bed and walk around as I was healing, I found that the way I got the needs that I had, because in South Africa at that time, if you were ill in hospital, they didn't let your parents come to see you because they believed that it would just upset you and then make it more difficult when they left. So I really thought they'd left. And when I asked, when is mom coming back? They'd say, when you're better. Well, to a 7-year-old, better, what is better? I've got to be more good. I've got to be kinder. I've got to be, I didn't have a full consciousness of illness other than how I felt. And so even though it kept me pushing all my life to get better, I realized, well, that was a negative thing because I was always working over hard and trying to get somewhere. But it also was an ultimate blessing because I became very independent in my commitment to growing. So I think that everything's a two-edged sword. Also, when I got out of the bed and was well enough, my joy and sense of healing came from going from bed to bed. So I was the youngest in the sanatorium, so I became a mascot. Oh, Mrs. Smith, can I put your dentures in for you? I thought that was totally fascinating. And so I think everything I've come to see, everything is a blessing, even the darkest things we experience. If we look underneath the skin of it all, you realize even abuse that I went through and things that I went through when I got into music, my sense of spirit, I can't even say what it is. It's like you can call it spirituality, but it's a sense that we are literally walking through an interesting dimension, which is filled with polarities. But beyond that, or with that is more the point, we have a sense of transcendence and a largesse that says that we're part of something so great we can't fathom it. In fact, when I was young, there was a book someone gave me and I never read it because it said everything I felt, and it said, your God is too small. So having come from Africa, where the Sangoma was the healing person in our community, I've always felt that a force was speaking to us from every different religion. And my time in Christianity, which I can't say I ever really left, because I just expanded it to include other things. So now I studied with Paramahansa Yogananda. And when I was in India, I went to his ashram and studied there. I've worked with the Zulu Sangomas, and so I've just seen that it doesn't matter. The force is everywhere and
Yes.
manifesting everywhere. And whatever calls you to it is what is calling to you.
Yes,
So,
it's beautifully said.
yeah.
Now, we do need to take a break, Anne,
Okay.
but I want our listeners to be reminded that you wrote this wonderful book. I hope everyone can see it, In Love with the Mystery. And when we come back, I'm going to read several of your inspirational verses. So,
Oh,
listeners, stay tuned. We're coming back to these wonderful verses.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Anne Mortifee. So I'm reading as promised from In Love with the Mystery. Perfection. Let go of false ideas about perfection. Perfection is not a state to be realized somewhere in the future. It exists here and now. Even what appears to be a mistake offers a stepping stone toward greater wisdom. My flaw may be your opportunity. We are at different places along the pathway of unfolding. Every mistake offers the possibility for awakening. Every awakening could be potentially leading us to the next mistake. Our life proceeds from possibility to possibility, from mistake to mistake, or from awakening to awakening. It all depends on our point of view. Extraordinary. I don't know, Anne, if you want to say something or comment after I finish this one. What do you think? Do you want me to go on to the next, or would you like to say it's such a beautiful verse?
Well, it's wonderful to hear it, Linda, because this is just my morning practice. I just take a moment in the morning and I just open, and I try to start every day. I've been doing it since 2009, just writing a tiny little piece since 2009, and it's led me deeper and deeper into myself. And I feel I don't even feel I write them. I feel they appear, and they need me to appear, but we're co-creating, as you said.
So they're coming through you.
They're coming through me, yeah. I'm
Yes.
sorry about my other phone, but it
What's
will
that?
my other phone, I will mute while it plays.
Okay. And so another inspirational verse, cosmic timing. We cannot know the appropriate timing for events to occur in our lives. There is a hidden perfection that orchestrates all things. Learn to accept and surrender to the mystery of cosmic timing. Allow anxiety to transform into patience. Allow disappointments to become quiet perseverance. Allow loneliness to evolve into fulfilled aloneness. It is through building strength by facing opposition that the great virtues are born.
Mm.
Isn't that so lovely, Anne?
Thank you, Linda. With that, what's so interesting, I didn't marry until I was 57. But I had known my husband, Paul Horn, who was a beautiful flute player. He did an album in the 60s called Inside the Taj Mahal. And he had played on my first album when I was 20, I think, 21. And we always had a special spiritual connection, but we didn't get together until I was 57 and he was 75. And so, but I had always held something precious with him. We didn't see much. He was married, but we did the odd concert together and so forth. But I realized we said, oh, wouldn't this have been fabulous if we got together when we were younger? And for me, it would have been fantastic because I just did not find someone I could really travel with internally, except for very short periods. And but he said, yeah, cosmic timing, baby. It's all cosmic timing. And I realized that I could not have been with him at any age younger. I had to, I would have followed him. I would have followed his career because it was so much larger than mine at the beginning and at the end. But it gave me the time I needed to individuate, to really become myself, to not mutate my life around someone else, which I would have done probably absolutely. So I'm a wonderful believer in cosmic timing, even though sometimes it's not that easy to wait.
Trust me, I know personally. Now, I wanted to ask you, in your Wikipedia page,
Uh-huh.
it lists all the awards you've gotten. It is an amazing repertoire. Did Paul do the music to In Love with the Mystery? You collaborated on the music.
Oh,
Did
yeah,
you?
literally what we did, we went in with two of our other very dear friends, Ed Henderson and Miles Black. And we just got in there and I had a page of all the pieces I would choose, to put on a spoken thing. And we said, how do we begin? And I said, Paul, why don't you lead us in? So he led us in. And whenever I felt like speaking, I would speak. And the other musicians came in and for 45 minutes, we just improvised.
Ah,
And the thing I loved the most is we would come to a point where I would be talking about something. I didn't know what was coming. They were all fresh for me at that time too. And I'd say, and it would turn into, and suddenly all the music would stop. And I'd say, silence. We we'd look at each other and go, oh, we're being orchestrated. So yes, it was totally improvised. It was a shared moment for all of us.
how beautiful. So my next one of the three, the last, there are so many beautiful verses for anyone who wants to purchase the book. This is called The Drama of Life. Those who have committed themselves to vigilantly observe their own reactions to the ups and downs of experience are those who eventually master the role they have been called upon to play. Most of us are too lost in the drama of life to ever step back and rewrite the script we are living. If we do not like the content of a scene we are enacting, we can choose to change it. We each are the author, director, and actor in the play that is unfolding. But only through constant vigilance can we become sensitive and astute enough to know what in the plot needs to be changed.
Mm.
Oof, powerful.
That has truly been my lifetime commitment. It's hard work. It's hard work, especially when things aren't going well for you and you feel lost and so forth. Which I've obviously, like everyone, had lots of moments like that when heartbreak has come or disappointments in work. But when I really understood that everything is a possibility, and it's a possibility to hone our spirit, to hone our mind. As the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said to Paul, and he said to me many times, the mind is a wonderful servant, but it's a terrible master. And to be able to see how our thoughts follow our emotions, and our emotions follow our thoughts. And that when something goes wrong, somebody says something that triggers your anger, there's a little gap between your reaction and a response. And if you can grab that little gap and take a breath and say, oh, I'm sorry you feel angry. Could you explain what I might have done that I might not have seen? And then suddenly what happens is you're in a dialogue instead of an upset. And then you take the dialogue away and you can look at yourself and say, yeah, it takes two to tango. And I have found that being vigilant like that, I literally went through a period, Linda, if you can believe it. I went through a period where I made these, the little stickies you get at the store where you can write whatever on and stick them over. I had them written on my fridge, on my mirror in the morning, and it's the word I used was locate, and it meant where are you? And that meant, are you in the future worrying about what's happening? Are you in the past regretting or angry or hurt about something? Or are you right where you are? And I remember the day that I really woke up and saw the importance of what you just read. And that was when my son was 2 years old, and he was crying. I had just separated from his father. I was in a state of total anxiety because I felt, I only know how to sing and write and how I'm going to look after him and go out and make the money and make all the, all the stuff.
Yes.
And so I'm imagining that, I've got him in one of those buggies and I'm walking out on the street. I was totally panicked and I was crying uncontrollably. I went over to the fridge because Devin was in his high chair crying, wanting breakfast, and I'm crying, wanting life to be different. And I opened the fridge, and as I pulled the door open, the sticky came by that said locate. And I went, oh my God, I'm just getting orange juice. That's all that's real. Everything else is make-believe. I am torturing myself. And I said, so what is really true? I said, I'm sad the relationship is over and I'm afraid. That's all that's true. So the future isn't here. Nobody's died. The past, you did your best and it's over. And so just pour your son some orange juice. So I took the orange out and I remember pouring it in the glass, watching this bright orange, cheerful liquid flowing into the glass. And I said, I'm going to change myself. I'm not going to torture myself anymore, because the story is what hurts us. The story that we're going to be miserable, that it's all over, that it's never going to be whatever our story is. And I just committed myself at that moment that I would be vigilant about locating myself and know that I can always handle what's happening right now. I may not like it. It may be really difficult. But if I go step by step by step, I'll be fine. And that is when I changed. And it didn't mean I changed overnight, but that was when I really got that the only one who tortures me is me. That I can leave any situation that is, I can be the captain of my ship, as it were. And so I totally surrendered myself to that journey at that moment. And that was 38 years ago. And
You made a quantum leap. You made a quantum leap at that point.
I made a quantum leap. It's taken till now, and I still have to self-correct, but the self-correction happens so quickly because I became friendly with the gap. Oh, you're going to go down that rabbit hole again. Do you want to? No. Okay, get out. Okay, how do you get out? Get out. Just don't go there. And it's training the mind. And that's when I really understood that the mind is a wonderful servant. It can help you get out of the rabbit hole you're going down, but it's a terrible master if the mind runs away from you and tells you the story of the misery you're in. It really is a skill. It's a skill.
I totally agree. We're at break time. When we come back, I would like to talk about how you became aware of being the artist that you are. Now, you also came to New York City to star in Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris. So listeners, come back and let's hear Anne's tale about that.
Great.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, aka the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Anne Mortifee. As we begin, Anne, can you tell our listeners where they can find the book, In Love with the Mystery?
Well, there used to be some on Amazon, and actually somehow my whole thing disappeared from there, and I have a friend working to put it back on. There may be a few books left there, but otherwise they could go to my website and I could mail it to them, which is AnneMortifee.com.
Lovely, lovely. So when did you realize you were an artist? And please tell us about your starring in, singing in, because you have a 4-octave range. Your register is 4 octaves. So tell us about all of that, Anne.
Well, I never ever, my whole life has happened to me. They weren't conscious choices. I never thought, oh, I'd like to be a singer. But what happened, I was actually at a Christian camp, and through a series of strange happenings, the two gals who led the singing, one of them had an appendicitis and had to be flown out of the place. And so the gal, Evie Gillespie, who was a huge influence in my life, she was a wonderful gal. And she begged me to come on. And I said, no, I don't know how to sing. I don't. And but I shared a room with them. So she said, well, I'm not going on if you don't come. So she said, well, if you won't do it for me, do it for Jesus. And at the time I said, okay, showing up for duty. So I went on and I stepped on that stage. And I loved it. I felt at home. I just loved getting people singing. I loved being involved in music. And so I sang every night for a month. And then when we went home, she had a birthday and invited me. And her mother had bought her a new guitar, and she gave me her guitar and her old one. And I just took to it like a duck to water. I then at 16, bought by 16, I was working professionally in a little coffee houses. My mother would let them come and pick me up and take me down while I was still in school. And I went to pick up my guitar on a Saturday, and the owner of the shop, or the coffee house, which was called the Bunkhouse, he said, "Are you going to the audition?" I said, "Oh, what's an audition?" And he said, "Well, the theater is looking for a girl singer to play in the Ecstasy of Rita Joe." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a play." And I said, no, I can't. No, I don't know anything about the theater. He said, "You're coming with me. I'm going to take you down." So he drove me down. He told me what to sing. I got the job. And the chap who had been hired to write the music often was not at rehearsals. And so the director and the writer of the play, George Riga, said, would you just make something up? Just here's the words in the script, just make something up. I said, just make it up. And he said, yeah, just make it up. We have to see if music's going to work in the play. So I started making things up as, I'd play a chord and whatever came out, came out. And they started to record me and tell me, take that home and learn it, because we like that. And if you need to fix it a little bit, you can, but we want that. Okay, that's how I became a composer. I had no idea what I was doing. And in that play, Chief Dan George, who played the grandfather in Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, he was there. And he played the grandfather in this play. And so it was like coming home for me, because I'd grown up with a different culture. So he pulled me into his family, and I spent a lot of time with him. And that opened me to the native spiritual sense of things. And so I felt like I was being pulled into a whole new world. That play opened the National Arts Center in Ottawa, which is our Washington. And I was seen there, and I was asked to go into another play. And that play moved to New York. And then I got seen by agents, and I got a contract with an agent in New York. And then I was offered the lead in Promises, Promises. And I had just come from this extraordinary play, The Ecstasy of Rita Joe, which was about a native gal who is torn between two cultures. And her grandfather represented her past life, and the judge and the city people represented how she was trying to fit into the white culture. And I was so moved by it. And over the year that we played that play, it changed the conversation in Canada on what had happened in our past. And I felt so good about that because of my African experience, and knowing that apartheid had actually been built on the Indian Act of Canada. And so my consciousness was growing into my passion for justice in the world. And so when I was with the musical director singing, so he could see if I could sing the parts of this, but I'd been offered the contract, and I was singing, and absolutely nothing about the song, which is a fabulous song. It was where I was at the time. But the song said, "What do you get when you fall in love? You'll get enough germs to catch pneumonia. And after you, he'll never phone ya. I'll never fall in love again." And I went, oh my God, I have to sing this 8 shows a week for 3 years. I said, what if I died singing this song? What if I just felt, after this other experience of actually helping to shift consciousness and culture, I just couldn't bear the thought. And so I said to my agent, could I do it for 6 months? And he said, no, You can't, no. I mean, there, it takes a lot to train you and to get you into the show and to advertise, and no. And anyway, while we were in there, and I was torn apart by this because I knew I was being offered something that any artist would go for.
Yes.
But somebody called him, and he was on the phone with a producer, trying to get the producer to say one of his other clients should have a 1/16 of an inch larger print in the program. And he was getting quite strong with the guy, with the person on the phone. And he said to me, just a minute, I have to check with my secretary. He closed the phone and said, what are 3 of the shows on right now on TV? And I went, I don't know. I think Mod Squad, or I'm just making up names. But I gave him 3 names, and he said back on the phone, yes, he had a leading role in Mod Squad, blah, 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 and the other ones. And I said, he's blatantly lying. And something in me felt alarmed that he would include me in that deception. And I said, how could I trust this person to look after my life? And I said, I can't, unless I can do it for 6 months, I can't do this. And he said, well, then you should leave New York because I won't work with you anymore. I said, okay. So I left New York and went home and said, oh, was I being offered the world, and did I make the worst? But I knew it wasn't right for me. I was home 2 days, staying at my mom's and dad's place. And I was still, I think it was 19 at the time, 18, 19. And the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, which was the biggest ballet company in Canada, called me and said, we are going to do the ballet of The Ecstasy of Rita Joe, and we'd love you to write the music. And I said, oh, I could never do that. I said, I don't know anything about ballet. I don't read music. The only things I've ever written are, you have, from Rita Joe. And he said, well, Anne, we like what you did. And I said, oh my goodness, like it was so over my head, I couldn't even envision it. And then he said, Anne, tell me, do you love Rita Joe? And I said, yes. He said, do you know how she feels? And I said, I'm not sure, but I feel for her and I love her and I'm concerned about her. And he said, well, why don't you bring your heart to Winnipeg and we'll see how it goes. And that totally changed my life because the ballet was so far beyond me. I had to totally rely on inspiration. And by that, I mean, I had to inspire. I had to bring in the spirit and let it do the job because I didn't know anything. And when Norbert Wiesack, that was Arnold Spohr, who was just a marvelous artistic director of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. And Norbert Wiesack, who was the choreographer, we would go up into the rehearsal hall and I'd say, I don't know how would you dance Pain for me, Norbert? I don't know what this person would say. I don't know how to get here. And he'd start to dance and we'd just have very low lights and I'd have my little guitar and off we went. And that was how The Ecstasy of Rita Joe, the ballet, and it became an international hit and my life was changed. I mean,
Go ahead.
No, I just have been led and I've followed as closely, trusting my instinct, trusting that because my desire was to be, I can't even say it was of service, but my desire was to follow something inside myself. And because I'd had a lot of spiritual experiences by then, I knew I had to listen to my gut knowing, and that was how life would speak to me,
when you turned away from promises, that was a leap of faith. It was an amazing, courageous decision, because you've led with your heart, Anne, and your heart is, the heart is our wisdom.
It is our wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, as the years went by, because I walked away from my career 3 times when the world was being offering. And on all 3 occasions, something different happened that helped me to know this is not your path. Do not go down this path. And I see now, as I'm older, that I would have been lost. I look at the music industry today, and there's so many people being eaten alive by it, They're thrown into fame and fortune. And I was somehow, this voice inside me said, you're not strong enough to go down this road. You will lose yourself.
It wasn't appropriate for you, Anne. It was not appropriate for you at all.
Exactly. And I didn't know was it my fear for success? Was I afraid? No. Only in retrospect do I not have, I knew I did the right thing at the time, but then I questioned myself and thought that I was lacking courage. But what I realize now, I was following a star. I was following something, I love that song, To Dream the Impossible Dream, to really go for what your heart says is the best thing for you. And it's not necessarily the best thing in the world, but it's just been the best thing for me to follow my heart. And I'm so grateful that I was guided in that way.
And we've gotten so much joy and creativity from your path as a result. It's just a wonderful thing when we co-create like that.
Yeah, it is.
So we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, I'd like to share with our listeners what your next project is going to be.
Oh, all right.
Where you're going to be led, where you're going to co-create. So listeners, stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Anne Mortifee. So, Anne, what's in store? What's your next project?
Well, it's fairly large at the moment. I have written 4 musicals and been passionate about them. And strangely enough, the second one was When the Rains Come, which was included in the National Academy of Music musical theater in New York. It was one of the plays chosen. And 9/11 happened right at that time. But before that, when I had written it, the day we opened, apartheid was over because I'd written it for South Africa. And now all these years later, I really feel called because Africa is in a lot of trouble at the moment, South Africa. And I feel, people forget what they've gone through and how you often, if you're a victim, you often become the perpetrator, afterwards, if you don't do the work you need to do. So I'm feeling a call for Africa. I spent time with the Zulus, head Sangoma, Vusa Mazulu Credo Mutua, years ago. He's gone now, brilliant man. And it ended up turning out that the woman that I had set as the Sangoma in the play, which was purposefully, Mandela was still in prison. And so I have this feeling that play had that difficulty at that time because now's the time. Now's the time for it to come out. So I'm going to go to South Africa and work with some musicians there. So that I'm excited about. I also have been writing about my life. And the reason is that, I've had just this strange life of in and out of the arts. And I've gone on pilgrimages. I lived in Lebanon for a year, worked in the Palestinian camps. I felt I had to, that was in 79 when they had a civil war was raging. And I felt I couldn't understand people, man, if I hadn't ever been in a war. Well, I lived to regret that, but I went there for a year, and it was life-shattering, life-changing, life-advancing, I really changed. After that, when we were being evacuated, there were only 2 planes going, and I could only take the one that went to India, which was great. So I ended up in India with no money, and that was when I learned meditation and so forth. So I've had a life that has spanned so many different things. My music, my art has been what kept me alive and gave me an outlet for my passion. So I have a body of work that has never really, because I have no ambition. So I don't tend to try to get things to happen. I've had good managers and various things over the year. My career as an artist, as a singer and writer of one-woman shows, I worked steadily and traveled with Belafonte, bless his heart, Harry, and traveled with, John Denver and so many people. I've had wonderful, wonderful experiences. And in between all those experiences, I have had other extraordinary experiences of traveling to far off places. So through it all, and the only reason I'm writing the book is not because of my life as an artist, but because of the miraculous things that have happened along the way. I mean, my life is full of serendipity in a way that, when I wrote When the Rains Come, I discovered that the Sangoma that I had written into the play, because I dreamt about this woman in my dreams. And so she told me what her name was, so I made her name in the play. And then I am led, because I'm writing things in the play that there's no way I knew what they were, but I found a book by Credo Mutua when I was working in a retreat center in the north of Scotland, Findhorn, which is a wonderful place. And a book fell off the shelf. I'm reading the book. It was written by Vusa Mazulu Credo Mutua. And there is one of the songs I've written. I mean, the story is right there. And I had no way of knowing that story. So I had called him and gone to see him. And he asks me, who is the Sangoma in your dreams? tell me about this Sangoma. So I told him, and he says, well, what does she look like? I said, well, she's got one white and one black eye. And one is normal eye and the other's all completely white. And tell me, what do her legs look like? Well, they look like the trunks of a tree. Huh. And what is her name? And I said, her name is Escoe. Say again? Escoe. He said, that woman is my grandmother. She had a cataract in her right eye, which turned it completely white, and she had elephantitis, which made her legs look like the trunks of a tree. And she had told me someone was coming to visit me. That was, I needed to know. And he said, I just did not think it would be a white woman. And he laughed. So that started an extraordinary journey. And so I've had experiences like that all through my life. And after I ended up receiving as a gift that he checked on, tested me about, I won't go into it because it'd take too long, but I was tested and then went through a ceremony and so forth. But I ended up with the central divining bone of his grandmother. And it had been made for her by her grandmother. So after these experiences, I would say, I said to him, what am I supposed to do this with this? What does she want for me to do? And he said, how should I know? That's for you in spirit to discern. So I've had so many things that is for you in spirit to discern, And so what I want to do is write this book and allow, because I've kept so many of the things that have happened at arm's length, not fully understanding them, not knowing what they wanted. But I've started to write about it. And as I do, other things pop up and pop up. I have been guided all my life in extraordinary ways. I suppose because even as a child, I was listening to who am I when I'm not dreaming I am,
Yes.
So I'm starting to write that book, and which takes me all through my Africa experiences and with the native people and in India and so forth. But mainly, I want to bring my body of work together so that I can, at the end of my days, say, I showed up. I did the best I could. And if I have a place here, and if you want to use any of the work, anything I've written, I need help. Somebody will come to help me do it. So, but I will do my part, which is, so that's what I'm doing. I'm getting all the musicals totally up and on the website. I'm getting all of the one-woman shows laid out. I'm going to do an audio book of my time once I finish this book, which is quite close to being done. And I'm just going to see where life leads me now. And I'm living in this beautiful little place on the water. And so I'm just writing, looking after my chickens. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's been such a joy. And you've shared so much to inspire the listeners of Talk Radio, New York City. When your book comes out, I want to invite you to come back to share some of that with us.
I would love that. I would love that, Linda. And Linda, I have to say, you are an extraordinarily wonderful human being.
Oh.
I thank you very much, and I thank you for having me.
Oh, a joy and a pleasure. Just tell our listeners the website again so that they know how to get your book and how to reach you.
It's AnnMortifee.com, and it's ANN MORTIF as in Frank, EE.com.
And thank you so much. So listeners, I wanted to mention that if you like this broadcast, share it with your friends, your family, talk about if you like the passion and the creativity of our guests, talk about it. Thank you so much. Next week, My guest is going to be Susan Griffith-Jones, an English woman, artist living in India with the most amazing images. We'll see you then. Bye for now.